Доброе утро, мои соседи.
Stirring the coffee with the chopsticks of truth using the vortex method, the only true way to optimize the taste of your coffee at the molecular level. Good morning. Welcome to the Daybreak Show, comrades. I am the Sultan. We'll get started, but first, bulletproof coffee. Nice.
Nice.
You are as brave or scared as the young teenage you was. He's still inside of you, guiding you down paths of avoidance, taking the easy way, playing it safe, and not wanting to get into trouble. It's time to leave him in the past. You don't have to say goodbye in a mean kind of way. You are just no longer him. You don't possess those qualities anymore. It's time to step away from that. It's time for a personal, private rite of passage. What can that be for you? Think about this. When testosterone first started flowing strong in your body as a young man, testosterone turned inward leads to discouragement, depression, paralysis. That very same testosterone turned outward brings home the meat from the wild animal that you stalked, outsmarted, and took dominion over. That meat now is represented by your personal success, your wealth, your physical and mental health, the health of your family, and teaching your offspring to do the same. This is why a mother and father are important. This is why a man is needed in your life, a father. This is why a dad is needed. I never thought in a million years that people would ever call me the father they never had. Never thought that in a million years. It's amazing how life turns out, doesn't it? I see the lessons of my father that I spurned, that I ignored, that I despised. I didn't see them till decades later. And you can't turn back the hands of time. You just can't do it. So it's never too late to turn that testosterone outward, not in anger, not in aggression, but in focusing that life power, that libido. Everyone thinks libido is all about sex. That's only part of it. It's about bringing home wealth. It's about going beyond your boundaries. It's about leaving the encampment and tracking and stalking and taking dominion. That's what it's about. Step away from the television, step away from the video games, step away from virtual reality. Sharpen the axe, sharpen the spear, and go get what brings you life. It's not going to come to you. It's not going to show up at your front door. I'm sorry to say. If you are a man that was raised by a single mom, you rarely saw your dad, or you did that lame ass every other weekend bullshit that the courts imposed on your family that made your mother happy. Let me tell you about your mother and father. Your mother thought your dad was Chad enough to fuck him, but he's not good enough to raise you, right? Your dad had to fight for you. He actually had to fight just to fucking see you. And you don't realize that. And you're too much of a little puss to go to your dad and say, Dad, I appreciate what you did for me. He's worn out. If he acts like he doesn't give a shit, you know what? You might be right. Because so much of what he tried to do with you didn't work. And it was an uphill battle. And he said, fuck it, maybe Maybe my son will come around when he's older. Maybe not. And it seems like he doesn't give a shit, but his give a shit was beaten out of him by this fucked up society, by the judges, by your mother, who needs to repent and you need to forgive, who kept you away from him. And he had to beg to see you twice a month and go to court. Your fucking father had to go to fucking court to see you. Some of you are going to be more angry that I just cursed than you are at the whole scenario. Then this channel's not for you. Let me repeat again. Your dad was Chad enough for your mother to fuck. All of a sudden now, he's the bad guy. Your mother cannot raise you. I don't care if she had a good job. I don't care how much child support she got. I don't care how hard she worked. She chose that fucking situation. And she's not a victim. Your mother is not a fucking victim. Let's get that straight right now. Dads naturally want to be with their kids. Naturally want to be with their kids. And there's no fucking mom's boyfriend or uncle that can take the place of your dad. None. Absolutely none. It's time to nut up, dude. Reach out to your father. Reach out to your dad. And give him some credit for fighting for you. He doesn't even want to do that anymore. He's done. He gave up. Because every attempt to try to be in your life was shot down by the fucking court system. This is only going to apply to a handful of you. The rest of you are going to be like, what the heck's he talking about? If you know, you know. And that's all I'm going to say about that topic. The quickest way to personal anger is to be mad at someone who promotes extreme responsibility. You know they're right, but you deflect through anger and being offended, don't you? I'll never forget, someone said to me once, it was actually a pastor, and for the longest time I literally hated this guy. I don't like him. I really don't like the guy now, because I know not much has changed, because he is kind of a jerk. It's interesting how a jerk can get into a place of power and influence. But the one thing I extracted from this asshole was this. Oh, and if you don't think pastors can be assholes, think again. But the one thing that I learned from this guy is this. He asked me a question. He says, in time, this is not long after my divorce, in time, you will see the role that you played in the demise of your marriage. Boy, did that piss me off. Because there was a time when I was acting like a victim. And nothing was my fault. And everything was her fault. And I'm not letting her off the hook. Just like I'm not letting me off the hook. Because it does take two. But the reality is this. I played a role in the demise of my marriage. And many of the problems that ensued after that. But I deflected by being offended and angry at what this guy said. And I used his assholeness as an excuse. Taking full responsibility, extreme responsibility for your life means there's no excuses whatsoever. How would your life be different if you took full responsibility for everything that happened in the past? And I'm not talking about if you've been victimized, like truly victimized, if you are a victim of violence or something like that. I'm not minimizing that. But what if you took full responsibility for everything in your life? When you log on to your bank account and look at your balances, what if you took full responsibility for that? You know, you build something nice and you say, I did that. Look at your bank account. Can you say, I did that? When you look at yourself in the mirror and look at your fat gut and how out of shape you are in your big pants that you put on, what if you took full responsibility? Guess what? You know, guys that are jacked and flexing, they're thinking, I did that. And they know there's no shortcuts to that. I'm sorry. There's no shortcuts. You know, yeah, there's guys that take testosterone. There's guys that have good genetics. I get that. But it still takes a lot of work. When you look at your fat self in the mirror, your skinny fat self, when you look at your skinny self, whatever your self is, can you say, I did that? No. You need to. Change begins with, I created that. I can change that. Instead, it's the testosterone turned inward, the discouragement, the depression, the paralysis that keeps you from doing nothing. And you can end up being 40, 50, 60, 70 years old and die with testosterone turned inward. Then you get to the point where there's no testosterone left in your body. And then you have nothing to teach. The biggest lessons that you're going to teach in your lifetime, teach to others, are lessons that are seen and not heard by the listener's ears. Can someone else just look at you? Is the way you look, your physicality, a message in and of itself? Does the way you look create a thirst in someone else's heart and mind? Here's a great example. I was working at a job. I was probably about 30 years old. I had a pretty high-level job at a university. I would say it was my first big job, so to speak. My first big job. 30 years old. I had already taught part-time adjunct for a couple different colleges, and then I landed this nice position at a university. And the director of HR was a guy about my age now, about my age. Late 50s, maybe a little bit younger than me. And I had said to him, how do you do it, man? I said, how do you? You're trim, strong looking. You're not a kid. What do you do? The way he looked and the way he carried himself was a message to me. He didn't have to say anything. Just the way he looked was encouraging and created thirst in me. Enough thirst where I asked him, how do you do it, man? How do you do it? Simple things. He said, I walk everywhere. He delivered inter-office mail in person. He didn't put it in the inter-office mail slot and let the mail guy on campus. If something had to go from HR to the registrar, he walked there and delivered the inter-office mail. The other thing was, he says, whenever there's an elevator, I will take the stairs instead. I said, what else do you do? And he goes, I work out 2 or 3 times a week. That was it. Simple stuff done over a long period of time. And just the way he looked made me inquire. It was a lesson. He didn't have to say a word to me. And he was actually one of the guys. He was one of the guys that helped me formulate the Stomach in, chest out, shoulders back, head held high, walk 25% faster. That was a guy that contributed to that. He embodied all of that. I can still picture him today. I should actually, well, that was over 30 years ago. I should see if he's still alive, see if he's around, and just let him know the impact that he had on my life just by being him. It's not like he sat me down and taught me these things. The way he operated from day to day had an impact on me to this day. As a matter of fact, this week I think that's going to be one of my tasks, is to try to see if he's still alive. I'm sure he's long retired. And see if I can reach out to him somehow, some way. 30 years later. Risk is the bridge that spans the gap between your life now and the life you want. The bridge that goes from where you are now to where you want to be, that bridge is risk. You need to cross the bridge of risk. Risk includes being increasingly comfortable with uncertainty. There's no guarantees. That's why they call it risk. There's no guarantees in life. Also, another R that you need, risk, resiliency. Resiliency to bounce back if things don't go as planned. Resiliency. In other words, like taking a punch and then shaking it off and getting back up. Risk and resiliency. That's your message for a Monday morning. How can you exercise risk and resiliency in your life? How are you going to do that? One of the first things you need to do is be a fan of, like a huge fan of, your time. You're a big fan of so many things. So many people who have success and their habits. Are you a huge fan of your time and of your habits? Pretty wild to think about. When you start valuing your time more, just do this one thing. Value your time today. When you value your time, you operate so much leaner. Cut out the fat. You don't waste any time with time wasters, the TWs. How many time wasters do you have in your life? You know, I started doing much better in life when I eliminated time wasters. If you have to mentally put a TW across someone's forehead when you picture them, TW, then do it. You don't have to be angry at them or despise them. Just know that they're time wasters. They will waste your time. They offer you nothing. You can still be kind to them. It's okay. Whether it be friends or family or whoever, just know who the time wasters are in your life and make an effort to take the TW off of your head. You are no longer a time waster. You are a huge fan of your time. And one last thing. Did you have your oysters today? Make eating oysters, raw oysters, great again. And with that, finish your coffee and I'll see you on the next Daybreak Show, your home of sanity, clarity, and reason.
Deep in the shadows, I know it's hard to put one foot in front of the other. So far as the echo, where do we start? You can learn to discover a million stars. Here in the shadows, I know you're scared. Take my hand, together we'll make a stand. We've got to fight to find a way. Dare to fall to find out what to say. No more hate, Just admit that you're just afraid. Time to let go of all your fears and pride. Stand up beside me, don't you hide. We can build a better place if we can just find a way. Then we can live a better day. Rise from the ashes, from the anger, from the war. Let's come together, lift your spirit for the cause. We should be equal, should be living free. All together, one and all, let's build a dream. Just admit that you're just afraid. Let go of all your fears and pride. Stand up beside me, don't you hide. We can build a better place if we can just find a way. Then we can live a better day. 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 Rise from the ashes, from the anger, from the war. Let's come together, lift your spirit for the cause. We should be equal, should be living free. All together, one and all. All together, one and all. All together, one and all. Let's live a better day.